Hello, viewers. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Chase Files. Joining me this week is Mr. Wilfred Abrams, a Barbadian politician and lawyer. He studied law at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus and the Hugh Wooden Law School in Trinidad and Tobago. Upon returning to Barbados and being called to the bar, his career as a successful attorney handling civil litigation and commercial law took off. He is the youngest attorney to serve as the president of the Barbados Bar Association. He has been involved in various charities and represented the island in sports. In 2018, he was elected a member of parliament representing Christchurch East and again re-elected in 2022. Under the Mia Motley-led administration, he has served as Minister of Energy and Water Resources and Minister of Home Affairs and Information. It gives me great pleasure to welcome him on the Chase Files.
Thank you so much.
You are most welcome. So let's get straight into it. In 2013, you first contested and you were beaten. Well,
yeah, okay,
yeah,
all right.
Admit defeat.
Yes,
But,
I lost.
yes, but you were appointed senator.
Yes.
So how did being a senator prepare you for representation?
Well, that was a baptism of fire. If you think about in parliament, when you're in government, you have at least a majority of other persons in any debate. So there are multiple people doing the debates. In the Senate had 21 persons. 12 were from the government, 7 were independent, and there were 2 from the opposition. So I was one of the 2 from the opposition. So literally, you had to be prepared to debate everything. Know everything, hold the heat on everything. So I think it actually really prepared me for coming into full parliamentary life in the House of Assembly.
Okay. You previously held the ministerial portfolios for energy and water resources. And when you were handed that responsibility, if memory serves me correct, sewage was flowing into the streets of the south coast of Barbados. So take me through how government was able to solve the sewage crisis.
Before I take you through that, you brought it up. I remember the day the Prime Minister called me. And I remember everybody was saying they hope they didn't get water. And you sit there after the election, you're waiting for the call from the Prime Minister to tell you what ministry, but if you're a minister, and then what ministry you be in. So I got the phone call. Hi, Wilfred, this is Mia. I said, hey, Prime Minister. And relieved note, you got the phone call, right? So you're in. And then she said to me, look, one of the government's critical agenda items has to be renewable energy and pushing sustainable energy in Barbados. So I would like you to be the Minister of Energy. I started to laugh. And she asked, what are you laughing at? I said, Prime Minister, you have no idea how glad I feel. She goes, why? I said, because I thought you were going to give me the sewage. She goes, oh, I hadn't finished. That was a comma. You will be the Minister of Water and Energy. Yes, the sewage is yours. And that was how I came into government. But in relation to solving that, hard decisions had to be made. I knew nothing about water infrastructure. But as a lawyer, if you're preparing a case, quite often you might not know the subject matter you're dealing with. You have to go and learn it. So I learned about water infrastructure. I learned about sewage infrastructure. I had meetings with some of the technical people to explain to me and talk me through the process. And I didn't just meet with the government people. I met with somebody from Stantec. I met with other people who are experts in the fields. So I got a full load of suggestions. So then, armed with some knowledge of it, I asked people to break down their plans. I then went on site. That was perhaps the roughest period of my political life because I was down on the South Coast literally almost 24 hours a day. I went there, I actually went up a sewage pipe to see what it was like. I can't ask people to do things for me and not know the pressure I'm putting them under. So it required me to really get hands-on to get a proper understanding. And I also listened to people who were doing the work. So not just the technocrats and the engineers, but the men on the ground who had ideas as to what could be done. So some very, very difficult decisions had to be made in order to effect it. I don't know if I should tell you what the decisions were,
You don't
right?
necessarily have to go
But
into detail.
it came with some very hard choices, and we made them. I think what happened with the previous government is that they didn't want to make the same choices because of the blowback. But you couldn't fear the blowback when sewage is in people's houses and in their bedrooms, right? At all costs, the sewage had to come off the street. I remember when the Prime Minister put me on it, she says, she gave me a time frame, I think it was like 3 weeks, 21 days. You have 21 days to get the sewage off the street.
Wow.
Right? So I did what had to be done.
Now, what would you say to people who were of the opinion, well, the previous administration could not get it fixed, or maybe, as you just said, did not want to make the harsh decisions needed to get it fixed? Who now saying, well, how it is that then just come and it fixed just so they would have got to be sabotaging the previous administration?
No, we couldn't sabotage it because up to now we found a couple of tears in the force main. That's the one that comes out from the plant under pressure. That's why the water was being forced up onto the streets. We found a number of disruptions in that main. So that couldn't be anything we sabotaged. We would have had to excavate the road to disrupt that. But as I said, it came to the harsh question of what do you do to get it off? So we started by trying injection wells. We dug a number of very, very, very deep wells to try to force the sewage into the wells so it wouldn't have to go out. That didn't work. We tried a number of other things. And eventually part of the solution involved digging a zigzag channel all the way from the South Coast plant, zigzagging through all of that agricultural land to allow, because the water, if the sewage flowed and it got exposed to sunlight for a certain period, then it killed a lot of the bacteria. So it was safe to send it out to the sea. So we had to design a way to make it travel as slowly as possible to when it got to the outfall to then send it out. And because we had no outfall at that point in time, we literally had to just push it into the canal and let it drift out, which is why we had to close the beach. We took a lot of flack for that, but really and truly, there was no other choice. Because to try to get the line repaired, no sewage could be going out down it. And that was the difficulty. That was the problem the last government had. They kept trying to fix or find the issue with the sewage going through the pipe. You were always behind the ball on that one. We took the decision to eliminate the outflow, direct it somewhere else, take the hard decision, and then try to fix that pipe. In the end, we couldn't get the pipe fixed. It was too much damage, and we were also sure that there were other areas that were blocked. So what we then did is we built a pipe out, an outfall out off Worthing Beach. And to ensure we didn't have a problem, we doubled up.
Okay.
So we had to significantly increase the cost, but we put 2. And the wisdom of that was borne out because somewhere in there they had a tropical depression, and it ruptured one of the pipes, but we were able to shut off that pipe and use the second one, right? And everybody was saying one is enough if you anchor it properly. But the Prime Minister's position was, and my position was, never again, right? If we need to build 2 or 3, we'll build 2 or 3 just to stop that. That was perhaps one of the worst times in the history of Barbados.
And you solved it.
And we solved it.
All right. Now, during the sewage crisis, you also had to deal with water scarcity in areas of St. John, St. Joseph, St. Andrew, and St. Lucie. You're smiling. Dry taps, no water, but people receiving water bills. So what were some of the measures that you put in place to get water to the residents?
So when we came in, we did a complete look at the total water infrastructure. And we looked at the reservoirs, and in examining reservoirs, we realized that there were a number of reservoirs that actually could not withstand a Category 1 hurricane. The reservoir on the top there by Fort George, that reservoir was actually buckling. And it was amazing. We were so afraid because at any point in time, that reservoir could have gone. So we set about building additional reservoir capacity across the island. And by doing that and actually taking water from different sources. So we did the vineyard pipeline. So we took water from vineyard and sent it to some of those affected areas to take the pressure off the existing water sources. So with the additional storage capacity, we were able to more or less patch the holes in the system. The other thing we did community water tanks while that was going on, while the reservoirs were being constructed. But it was a whole mess. It was, the premise is to say deconstruct and reconstruct. So it literally was a deconstruction and reconstruction.
Now, apart from being empathetic and yes, trying to get water to some of the residents, what else did government do to address the plight of those affected?
All right, so there was a period in there where persons were receiving water bills and they were in the areas that were affected with low water or in some cases no water. And I don't know why they were receiving the bills, but you have to meet people where they are. And if something is wrong, we as a government accepted that the water supply was entirely less than adequate. So we had to take the decision to waive some of those bills and provide some compensation for other persons. We also supplied some people with water tanks, and we tried to ensure that the tanks were topped up. The Water Authority had a home tank plan, and so tanks were provided at very low cost, subsidized cost to a number of persons, and in some instances where it was really acute, they were given the water tanks free. But that was a dark day, but it pointed to something for us. We have to keep monitoring and maintaining. It is easy to spot things. If you pass a building, the building is derelict, it's easy to spot it and say, well, all the windows break out in that building. But we can't ignore things that are happening underground. So a lot of our water, almost 50% of our water, was being lost through leakages. There was one time when they had a burst out there by the Globe Cinema. And when they dug it up, it was an old pipe. The pipe was probably about 150 years old, a cast iron pipe.
Wow.
They had nothing, no couplings to actually fix that. But somebody who was old in the Water Authority remember that somewhere up in St. Philip, they once had a pipe that size.
Wow.
So people literally went and excavated areas to try to find the pipe. When they found it, they cut it, brought it, and were able to patch it.
Wow.
But we don't know what's going on underground.
Underneath.
Luckily, the technology has increased significantly. They have flow meters. They're able to measure. So if I know that 100 gallons flew through here, and the next meter saying 63 gallons came out, then you know 33 gallons is missing or leaking somewhere in there. So there's been a comprehensive attempt to try to replace a lot of the mains. But if you also think about it, there was an outage in St. George. In St. George, there was an outage for about 2 days. And no one could understand why. It was very, very low pressure, and in peak times, there was no water. And that outage was because they did not even know where the main ran. All you knew is that the water from the reservoir actually got to this area. But nobody could remember where that pipe was. And that was the case of driving across fields and looking for wet spots.
Wow.
So we need to map out our water infrastructure. But now as we are replacing the mains, that is becoming a little bit more scientific so you can be a bit more accurate and efficient in what you're doing.
Now, you have been under a lot of public scrutiny since you've become a parliamentarian. So how do you manage the stress, or how do you deal with the levels of scrutiny that you've been exposed to?
You know the serenity prayer?
Yes.
I literally employ that in my life. There are things over which I have no control. If I have no control over it, then I'm not going to stress myself. If I have an ability to control the situation, the narrative, or the item, then I will do what I can. But there are a lot of things that happen in government that, quite frankly, are outside of control. You are caught by external circumstances, needing to rely on other persons or other entities to get things done. My simple thing is all within my control. I try to do to the best of my ability and quickly. So if it comes to me and I can influence it, I'm on it. If I know that I have to wait for it to come from Stephanie Chase, then I will harass you, Stephanie Chase, right? But equally, I'm not going to stress myself because I can only do to a certain point. So it's a case of knowing what you actually can do and realizing as well that there's some things over which you cannot control. So control your space so that you are not the cause of the problem.
Okay. In 2018, you secured 4,432 votes, 73.9% of the overall vote in Christchurch East. In 2022, you gained 3,302 votes, 73.7% of the overall votes. That's a little decline from 2018 to 2022, which brings me to my next question. You think that voter apathy played a role in the decline of the vote, or what people may perceive as be your decline in popularity in the constituency?
No, you can't look at Christchurch East by itself in a vacuum. You got to look at the overall picture. And in 2018, we had record amounts coming out to change the government. People were completely fed up. So you had all the people who identify as Bs coming out, all of the uncertain or swing voters coming out, and you had some people who identify as Democratic Party supporters coming out to vote for the government. So it was that people were so fed up that they were motivated to come out and change. That's why the numbers for everybody were really, really high in there. Because we didn't just get from ourselves, we got from persons who otherwise would not normally support us. In 2022, there was a bit of course correction, right? A number of the Dems who would have voted for us before didn't give us the vote. So the numbers became a little bit more realistic of what the representation actually was. But if you look at the percentages, concentrate on the percentage of vote, because if people stay away, then how you've done is, have you really lost support? Or did the same amount of percentage persons vote for you? So voter apathy is a concern. A number of people are saying, we support you, man, the government got this. No, I don't accept that. I keep telling people, the ballot box starts empty. The only votes that get counted are the votes that you put in it. So to say that you support, to say that the government is going in the right direction, and to say that you're confident in the management of the government of Barbados is one thing. But if you actually don't go and make the decisive approval, then things might be up in the air. So if we're looking at 2022, as I said, I wasn't bothered because I think I actually won by even more votes in 2022 than I did in
2018.
Correct, right? So I'm comfortable with the support. I'm comfortable in what we did in 2018 and 2022. The aim now is to motivate voters to come out, because the reality, we're in a very difficult time right now. There's a lot of global uncertainty, right? The question is, who do you want to take you through that? We have a record of which we can be proud. We put out this red record, literally an A to Z of our achievements. I don't think any government's ever actually done it. And if you read it, we've done a lot. We don't beat ourselves on the back hard enough. We don't push up our chests enough, but we have done a lot. If you look at our manifesto, the last manifesto, over 70% of the promises that we made, we have achieved. And that is major for manifesto. But you balance that as well as the challenges against the challenges we had. In our term in government, we've had to deal with COVID, where we lost almost 3 years of productivity. No roads could be built, houses weren't built, economy was stagnant, people were losing jobs, businesses were collapsing. We lost 3 years there, right? And then we had the ashfall, we had Hurricane Elsa, we had Hurricane Beryl, we had the freak storm. So any of those things by themselves would have derailed a government.
But all of them together.
Correct. And we still managed to rebuild people's houses from Elsa. We still have gotten the road program started back and it's moving, right? We mounted during COVID the greatest social intervention that Barbados has ever done. The amount of social assistance that was given in terms of NAS benefits, in terms of hampers, in terms of actually full medical services. It was, a lot of people look at government and they think it's easy. We go out and we wear our smiles, right? Because you have to present that face to the public. We go out there and we wear our smiles. But sometimes it is so hard what is going on in the back. And we have to put that positive face on so you don't get upset or you don't lose confidence. So I would take this opportunity to say, I want big at the Prime Minister. I want big at the other members of Cabinet. It has not been an easy road. I do not know how Prime Minister Mia Mottley does it. I don't know how she does it locally. I don't know how she does it internationally. And she has been the single greatest input into this period of history in Barbados. And I think the public, for the most part, knows it. So I wish that on the day in question that they come out and say, this is where we want to take the country forward for the next 5 years.
All right. Well, over the years, you've invested heavily in sports in Christchurch East. What else have you done? You supported cricket, you support football. What else have you done?
So, sports
because everybody in Christchurch East is an athlete.
Correct. So we did CXC Second Chance program. We had a wonderful organizer and tutors who came on board, because when people go up, everybody wants a government job. There's a thing in Barbados, people wanted a PC Rock, the other half want a government job. But when you go for certain jobs in government, there's usually a minimum requirement of 4 CXCs,
That's right.
Maths and English. And the amount of persons who don't have those, not because they're not capable of getting it, but because circumstances intervened in their life that made it difficult. You had a child early, your mother died and you were depressed, something, right? So I had started by doing scholarships. I was paying for people to go to O-Level Institute principally, and also to Foundation for the after school program, the evening CSC program. But then a lady who I offered that to said to me, "But Mr. Abrams, I have a child. I would prefer something in the constituency that at least I am close to home. If something happens to my child, I can get home." And I thought about it. And I started to ask some other people, if we did this, would it make it easier for you? And a number of people say yes. So it was a pilot and we tried it. And the capacity was 30 students. I think over like 180 something people have put up their names for it. So we had to narrow it to those. And some stayed the course, right? And they were successful. And I'm glad to say that a couple of them who stayed the course and got the CXCs, that got themselves up to the level for the jobs that they wanted, were able to get the jobs.
Excellent. That's fantastic.
I guess you don't want to hear about the sports.
No, I don't need to hear about the sports, because we all know about the Wilfred Abrams football team and being promoted to certain levels. Yeah, but you can go ahead. Go ahead.
I will say one thing. So a certain person, I'm not going to say my opponent because it may or may not have been her, but a certain person said I didn't do anything for the young people. And then when the evidence came out of all that I'd done for the young people in sports and the sponsorships, she then said, a certain person then said, well, all he is do is run around behind sports people, right? What about crime? What about other things? And it is amazing to me that people miss the obvious. We had hot spots in our constituency when there was nothing going on.
Yeah.
From the time we put all of the sports teams back into action, almost every district has some sports team. And our constituency was segregated. It had the top of the hill, the bottom of the hill. The top, if you put an event in the bottom, nobody from the top went down. If you did something on the top, the teams from the bottom would not go. We now have players from Silver Sands playing in Parish Land football team. We have players from up the hill playing in Silver Sands football team. When Parish Land field was being redone, everybody had to use Inchmarlow as their base. And I keep saying to people, if you empower the young people through sports or other things, right? and they're busy in constructive pursuits, then they can't be breaking in your house.
Yeah.
I would say one other thing. I am so pleased with our young people. When I started to sponsor Civil Science, one of the things I did was give weed whackers to a number of the guys. A number of them got jobs, and I put those who couldn't get the jobs to work for themselves. I did the same thing in parish land. You know, there are about 3 teams of persons who are doing the bushing, who now have full equipment. They got weed whackers, leaf blowers, drive mowers, right? And working, employing each other. One person trying employing at least 10 other people.
That's excellent.
Right? From the same teams. So I don't care what anybody says. I will forever put my money behind the young people because, you know what, that's where I am closer to the end than I am to the beginning.
Okay.
Right? And those are the ones we can be looking at in 10, 20 years to determine what's happening in Barbados.
All right. Well, the Integrity and Public Life Bill was passed in the lower house in 2023 with unanimous support. However, it is yet to be passed in Parliament, or it hasn't been proclaimed. So it's in limbo. What are your thoughts on that?
We're going back at it again. So the next term you see us go back at it again. The reality of that bill hit us. A lot of people don't understand. They know we're looking for integrity legislation. We want to be able to make sure the boy teeth in money. We want to be able to ensure that the politicians being truthful. And the focus is on the politicians. I don't have a difficulty. The Prime Minister made us all declare our assets. All. Right? So we all had to file a full list of our assets. And it was submitted to, I think it was the Clerk of Parliament, right? But it was submitted under seal. So if for some reason an allegation arises against you and you were driving a Toyota and all of a sudden you're driving a Mercedes and got a boat, right? Then we can see what did you actually have. Were you using family money? Did you have money before? Or if you're only using your salary, then you need to explain how it is that you manage these things when our salary cannot buy those things, right? So, but people focus on the politicians. I do not have a difficulty with that. I'm an open book. I am not going to tell you what I earn because I don't necessarily need people in my business.
But it affects other civil servants as well.
Precisely. And not just civil servants. It goes to the chairman of statutory boards. So a lot of persons, the statutory boards are which run a number of companies. So for example, the Water Authority has a board. A number of the big institutions, NAS has a board. BTMI has a board. Now, by making those persons have to declare their assets, they're private individuals. A lot of them did not want to do it, but it didn't even just extend to them. It extended to them, I think, and their spouses.
Okay.
Right? So you were getting people saying, all right, you know what? I thank you all for the ability to work with government.
But,
right?
we opt not to.
Yeah, we opt not to. You need your top persons at the top of statutory boards. You can populate a number of them with other persons who may not be as experienced or may not have specific qualifications. But the chairman of the boards, the ones who control how the money is spent, chairman, deputy chairman, you need to ensure that those persons are capable of managing the tasks that are assigned to them. So you will find that you get, as your chairman, people from industry, people from business, people who have proven qualifications before coming into that. Now, those people, they do their taxes, they file their own stuff, but they don't want to...
So somewhat it's an invasion of their personal privacy.
And their family.
And their families.
So when we were faced with that, it was a case of, you know what, all right, let us pause for a little bit. Right? We still had a flight of some people from it. There are a number of companies in Barbados as well that have now shifted to, they don't want any of their employees or in their management on statutory corporations because they're politically exposed persons. So if we remove that category of person from our resource bank, then we can't run the government. So we are going to go at it again and try to find a system that actually works for us.
Okay.
And if we even go further, The category of PEPs, politically exposed persons, internationally has become so ridiculous, right? That persons who are on boards here or who may qualify as PEPs that have connections to overseas, might work for overseas company. You might be a lawyer actually doing work for overseas company, but if you are now a lawyer sitting on a board, you might be a politically exposed person and you can't get that retainer anymore. So it is not as simple as just going after the politicians. As I said, the Prime Minister didn't give us a choice. She said, all y'all need to declare your assets. And we all did. Right? But that's us.
Yeah.
It might be unfair on the others.
Yeah. And you can't force them.
And you can't force them.
Now, moving from that point, what is your stance on campaign finance reform?
I think whatever structure we come up with has to be one that is fair, equitable, and transparent. People must feel comfortable in being able to support their parties. So people look at the campaign finance reform from the aspect of, I want to know how much they're getting.
And how they spend it.
And how they spend it, right? But people seldom look at it from the position of the donor. There are people who want to donate, but who don't necessarily want to appear to be affiliated with the party or supporting one over the other. I think campaign finance, it sounds good. We don't have the level, like for example, in the US, of dollars flowing through campaigns like in the US. But they have lobbyists. They have people whose job is it to go and raise money. So I think any system right now, the opposition is free to raise as much money as they want and spend it however they want. The government is free to raise as much money as they want, spend it however they want. There are people who support both parties. There are people who donate to the BLP and donate equally to the DLP. What I'm concerned about is vote buying and corruption in an election, right? So if we have an overall framework that regulates all, then I'd be satisfied with that. But I don't think it's as big an issue in Barbados as people believe. What is an issue is people on the day saying we ain't voting unless you're paying, right? Or you want my vote, what are you gonna do for me? No, that's a reality.
It's transactional.
It is very transactional. So that then can skew it.
Anyway.
Correct. And what actually happens often is people will take it from one, take it from the other. You don't even have a clue how to vote.
Yeah. Or if they vote at all.
Or if they vote at all. So I am in favor of a transparent system that allows people to support the parties that they want to, allows parties to finance themselves properly, and that eliminates the actual corruption, especially on election day.
Okay.
But it is, if we look at it across my experience across the whole of the elections that I've done, the votes that are offered are not usually sufficient to change anything. The majority of Bajans go and put their eggs responsibly, voting
They
for
know who they're going to vote for. All right. In terms of policy implementation, which policy are you most proud of that you would have worked on?
I'm most proud of our immigration policy.
Okay.
Everybody had the issues with immigration. When I first became Minister of Home Affairs and I was given immigration falls under Home Affairs, I used to get complaints daily. People would send me emails about this experience they had in immigration, how long this thing taking, the citizenship applications taking up to 2 years, the passports taking 6 months to come back. You had a litany of woes. I don't need to rehash them because everybody watching your podcast at some point in time had a problem with immigration. We took a decision that enough was enough, right? The first person you see in landing in Barbados is an immigration officer. That's the first point of contact with the government of Barbados. It must be a pleasant one. For those persons who are citizens of Barbados, then the facilities we provide, you need to get as of right. You are entitled to a Barbados passport, right? If you have children born overseas or whatnot, you're entitled to have them registered as citizens. So a lot of what is there is entitlements. Entitlements should not be that difficult to get. They exist for a reason. The other thing is we had a culture inside the immigration office where people said it was a hostile environment. I had a meeting with everybody, right? And I said to them, look, this needs to stop. I had come in there and, let me give you the whole story. Somebody called me and said that they were at immigration and they were trying to pay for their citizenship. They had the letter on their phone, but they didn't have
a printed one.
A printed copy. And they said that the cashier refused to take the money. And this is I'm not going to call who the person is. This is a relatively well-known person, and the person is very volatile. So I said, I'm coming, right? I'm in Bay Street and coming there to you now. I went on the road, park outside, came inside. And as I go inside, the guard said to me, excuse me, sir, you need to wait here. I said, well, I'm actually just going to the cashier there. Sir, you have to wait here. I said, I am going to that person, Mr. X. I'm going to Mr. X over there just to sort out something. You hear what I told you? You have to stand there.
You got treated like everybody else.
Correct, right? So I stood there. I told Mr. X and the cashier, hold on. I stood there. And as the line moved, somebody came out. The chief immigration officer came out for something. I said, Minister, what are you doing there? He said, the guard told me to stand here. Minister, right? The guard then said, but I didn't know this was the minister. I said, you didn't have to know that.
They didn't have to know.
Right? Your approach was wrong. I will deal with that later. Let me go and do what you're going to do. And I went there and I asked the cashier, what's the problem? Yeah. He said, well, we need the original letter. I said, but what you need the original letter for? I said, do you doubt that what he's showing you
is authentic?
Is authentic? He said, no, but we need the original letter. I said, why? Because we have to stamp paid on it. I said, this man must have a file. She said, yes. I said, go and get the file. But this ain't chief is standing there now. I said, go and get the file. So she went and got the file and came back. The letter was on it. He had been emailed the letter, but the original letter was it hadn't been sent out yet. I said, take that letter and stamp it. That's sufficient? I said, yes. I said, you really feel that was necessary? Even if that letter was not there, you have a duplicate on there. If you needed to stamp something, go get the file, copy it, stamp it, and give it back to the man. So I called a meeting immediately with all heads of the department. I said, come. I said, this has to stop. I told them my experience. I said, this has to stop. I want to know what all of your challenges are, all. It was a Thursday. I said, give me your challenges by 9 o'clock tomorrow. Right? All. So they sent me a whole list of challenges. It said some policies were uncertain, something. And I went home over the weekend and I responded to every single one. All that was unclear, I made clear. They were more surprised when they got it back Monday. I don't think they expected to get it back Monday. I then said as well, look through here. All the people who have complaints against and letters against them for being impolite or being what, you don't put them to face the public. Put them somewhere else. The persons you have letters commending people for being helpful. Put those to face the public. This must stop now. And then I just kept going in all the time. I would pass through there unexpected, unannounced. I would go and look there. I would go to the airport to see how the processes are being managed. And we started to have regular meetings with the full heads. And I've met with probably most of the staff as well in big meetings. And you try to address all of the challenges so people feel that you care. Right? Or people know that you care. So you can say
that there has improvement in service in the immigration department?
Well, Stephanie, have you used immigration department over the last couple of years? You use it? Yes.
Okay.
I cannot tell you the last time that I got any email
Okay.
that was negative. You have some challenges sometimes, and they're actually good at report. If they have an incident, they will report it and tell me,
Okay.
we had this incident. But actually all of the correspondence I get now in relation to immigration, right, is positive. This was such a painless process, and so pleased at how fast it's gone. I mean, if you just
Because
look,
the general consensus from members of the public is that it's difficult to do business in Barbados, or that it's unpleasant.
I can show you the letters, right? If you just even look at your time frames, citizenship applications, we can come. If you have all your paperwork together, you can get by your citizenship application in about 2 weeks, right? If you apply for passport, if you need an urgent passport, you get back your passport the same day,
Okay.
right? But the regular passport normally takes maybe 5 working days to 7 working days. It used to be months. All of our processes everything has been shortened. When you come through the airport, right? If you travel, you can realize that the holdup is no longer the immigration line, even when it is full.
Okay.
Right? The immigration line flows like this. That's because people now are people want to work in immigration. A lot of people in other government departments. I know a lot of people from the Postal Service actually wanted to shift over to immigration because there is a recognition that the department is doing very well,
and that's the place
and
to work.
is a good vibe.
Okay. Now, moving back to Christchurch East, what are some of the challenges that the residents face that you are aware of?
That's an easy one. The roads. The roads are terrible, and it is. When we came into government, I think 74% of the roads were classified as being poor. We had some in Christchurch East. That was my major issue in the period between 2018 and 2022. We got a number of roads done. So the road, like from Gibbons Brow all the way down past the mill down to Stairs Court, the Oblong About, and other small roads we got done. At the time, that road was the worst. But what has happened is that the roads are deteriorating quickly with the rain. So even when you patch,
it's not lasting.
As the rain falls and pools and rushes, it rips out the patch, it rips out the road. So the road from behind the airport, right, all the way down to Wilcox, and the road from Oystins coming up to Chancery Lane are awful. So hands down, literally, my common complaint from people is the roads.
Okay.
What I can say, and I'm glad to say, is that both of those same roads, the notice has been issued for the roads to be done. So people traveling those roads will see the billboards, see exactly what is going to happen. They're saying they're doing slip and curb, drainage, whatnot. So people know what to expect. And I understand that one is to start in March, I believe, and the next one shortly thereafter. So thank Jesus, they're being fixed because they were bad. But say A and say B. It is capacity. If you have 74% of the roads being bad, and we have 3 companies in Barbados that are capable of doing road works on that scale, and I think 3 persons with asphalt plants, then if everybody worked as hard as they could, as fast as they could, we would still be behind the ball because the capacity is not, it's too much work. And then they're getting worse. So literally, the road would be bad today. But when we had that rainfall that caused all the damage out Charles Road Bridge, a road that was bad then became overnight a terrible road, ripped up entirely. So I understand the challenges that MTW has. Right? It has been very frustrating for me to not get the roads done. But if I am honest, it ain't spite or malice, is that they're trying their best with limited resources. So I'm glad that we are now in the rotation to get ours done next. And they've assured me that the roads are not being paved. In short order, we can get a dedicated patching truck up in the south to patch a number of the roads, because some of the roads are not bad, but they got 2 or 3 deep potholes.
Okay.
Which, if you patch them properly, the whole road will be smooth.
And my last question for you. Why should the residents of Christchurch East vote for you a 3rd time around? Or maybe a 1st time?
Well, look, my record as well speaks for itself. The one good thing I learned is in 2013, my opponent said he don't know what he's doing. What am I doing for the people? And there is the things that I was doing. So the sponsorship of football I did when I was in opposition. The things that I was doing back then, I was not chronicling them. So that's why, on the advice of some people, I developed a social media page. So at least you can see what is being done. The record is there. If anybody chooses to go and look, Wilfred Abrams CCE on Instagram, you can look through and see what is done. The captions are explanatory. I thank the people of Christchurch East. I don't take your vote for granted. I think we've done a good job. I think I've done a good job. It hasn't been perfect. We've not done everything for everybody, but we tried to do as many things for as many people as we possibly could. And I would say that I don't take the excuse of persons saying, when you ask persons who might be in opposition, like what you did for people, and they say, well, I couldn't do nothing because I'm in opposition, or I ain't had the resources. It was in opposition that I actually first sponsored Abrams United Silver Sands. It was in opposition I sponsored Potential Ballers. It was in opposition that I started to do hampers and homework program. It was in opposition that I started to do vouchers. While in opposition, I kept my office open the entire time I was in office. Every single day that you had a person to come and complain, I paid somebody. I was in opposition. So out of my own money, I paid somebody. So there's a face there that people can come and give the complaints, and I try to get back. I am comfortable with the response that I'm getting. The response I'm getting is not crying down my performance as a minister. It's not crying down my MP. As I told you, my biggest challenge is roads, and that is being fixed. So we're going into uncertain times as a country. With what is happening in the States, with what's happening globally, we are going into some very, very uncertain times. You know that your government has done well for you in difficult times, with the COVID, with the ashfall, with Elsa Beryl, right, in rescuing the economy. You know that the government has actually managed Barbados well up to this point. Who are you going to risk on? Who are you prepared to have run the country for the next 5 years in what is probably going to be a very, very difficult time as well, and very uncertain? Do you want the track record of coming through when it counts, the track record of managing well, or do you want a lot of promises and nothing to gauge it on?
Well, and on that note, my question to you viewers, who will you trust to take you and the country forward? Thank you, Mr. Wilfred Abrams, for joining us. And until next time, you've been watching The Chase Files, and I am Stephanie Chase.